A 7-month pregnant mother was brutally murdered, her unborn baby taken from her body. A few days later, her 3 remaining children mysteriously disappeared. It sounds like something out of a horror movie, yet it actually happened in September 2006 in East St. Louis, Illinois, USA. The police immediately launched an investigation, but when the truth came to light, everyone was shocked. The perpetrator was none other than the victim's best friend. The motives remain unclear, but her actions went beyond the boundaries of human morality. Don't look away. One of the most horrifying cases in human history is about to be revealed. Before we begin, hit like and subscribe to ensure you don't miss out on more chilling true crime stories. The central figures in today's story are best friends Tiffany Hall and Jamella Tunstall. They grew up in the same neighborhood in East St. Louis, Illinois. Tiffany had a strong-willed personality. She frequently clashed with her family and often had heated arguments with her mother. Beverly Cross, Tiffany's mother, once revealed that her daughter was an uncontrollable rebel, even setting the kitchen on fire as a teenager. Despite this, Jamella trusted Tiffany completely. She didn't care about Tiffany's troubled past. In 1999, at age 16, Jamella Tunstall welcomed her first child, a baby boy named Demon. Later, she gave birth to 2 more children, Even in 2003 and Janella in 2004. Becoming a mother at such a young age was not easy. Jamella's life was a struggle filled with financial hardships, emotional turmoil, and immense responsibilities. She even lost custody of her children after being accused of disciplining her eldest son with a belt. But Jamella never gave up. She fought to regain custody, took parenting classes, endured social judgment, and ultimately won back her children. Meanwhile, Tiffany Hall also became a mother at 16. She soon had a second child, but her life took a dark turn in 1999 when she lost custody of her firstborn. When social workers intervened, they found the 2-month-old baby in a severely malnourished state. The child was limp like a rag doll, unresponsive to touch. The neglect was so severe that by age 5, the child was still wearing diapers and struggling with speech, only able to make incoherent sounds. In 2002, in a controversial decision, Tiffany regained custody of both daughters after Illinois prosecutors chose not to press charges against her. The Department of Children and Family Services deemed her no longer a threat to her children. This should have been a fresh start for Tiffany, an opportunity to become a better mother, but this fragile hope was quickly shattered by what happened next. At 23, Tiffany Hall spiraled further into crime. She was charged with possession of stolen credit cards, just one of many legal troubles she encountered over the years. Meanwhile, Jamella Tunstall's life took a completely different path. As Tiffany's world descended into chaos, Jamella focused on building a peaceful life for herself and her children. By 2006, Jamella was pregnant with her 4th child, eagerly anticipating the birth of a baby girl. She was filled with hope for a better future for her family. Despite their differences, the friendship between Tiffany and Jamella remained strong. Tiffany often helped Jamella take care of her children, as if she still held on to their past bond. But no one knew that a horrifying plan had already been set in motion, and a night of terror was fast approaching. On September 15, 2006, Tiffany called the police in a frantic voice. She claimed that she had suffered a miscarriage at Frank Holton Park and that the baby was stillborn. When paramedics arrived, Tiffany was clutching a lifeless newborn. She appeared utterly devastated, sobbing in despair. She was taken to the hospital along with the baby. But within minutes, doctors began to notice something wasn't right. When doctors suggested a medical examination, Tiffany immediately refused. She insisted she didn't need to be checked and just wanted to go home. This raised even more suspicion. Something was definitely wrong. As soon as Tiffany left the hospital, investigators began their inquiry. During questioning, her statements were riddled with inconsistencies. Initially, she claimed she had been attacked and assaulted, but just minutes later, she completely retracted her statement. The contradictions in her testimony only deepened investigators' suspicions. Furthermore, no one, except her boyfriend, a Navy officer, knew that Tiffany had been pregnant. Neither her family nor her friends were aware of any pregnancy. When the baby girl underwent an autopsy, doctors found no signs of trauma. The cause of death remained a mystery. Tiffany left the hospital, abandoning the baby, whom she had named Taylor H., in the morgue, but soon after she organized a bizarre funeral for the infant. On September 21, 2006, the funeral for the baby girl was held. Just before the ceremony, Tiffany suddenly requested a postponement, claiming she needed to wait for more family members to attend. But in reality, only 2 family members showed up. She arrived 2 hours late, something completely unusual. At a funeral, people typically arrive early to pay their respects, but Tiffany didn't seem to care at all. Among the few attendees was Tiffany's boyfriend, KH, who had taken leave from his Navy duties to attend the funeral. He believed the baby being buried was his daughter. While all eyes were on the strange funeral, a new fear silently spread. No one knew where Jamela Tunstall was. She had been missing for days. No calls, no messages, no trace. Jamela's family and friends grew increasingly frantic. They kept calling, texting, and searching for her on social media. But every effort failed. Jamela had vanished into thin air, as if she had never existed. After the funeral, Tiffany had a private conversation with her boyfriend, KH. In a chilling and disturbing moment, she accidentally revealed a horrifying truth. She casually admitted, "I took the baby out of my best friend's stomach." Those words hit KH like a ton of bricks. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. How could Tiffany say something so monstrous? Everything around him seemed to spin. The puzzle pieces started falling into place, revealing a nightmare beyond imagination. KH knew he couldn't stay silent. He had to act before things spiraled further out of control. Even worse, Jamela Tunstall, Tiffany's best friend, had been missing for days. Without hesitation, KH grabbed his phone and called the police. As soon as the report was made, police immediately formed a missing person search team. 6 agonizing days passed, with Jamela's family and friends barely eating or sleeping, desperately hoping for a miracle. Then the truth finally surfaced. A patrol team discovered Jamela Tunstall's body in an overgrown field, just a few blocks from Tiffany's house. Jamela lay there, lifeless, her body horribly mutilated, her abdomen showing signs of severe trauma. Near her remains, police found a blood-stained pair of scissors, the very tool Tiffany used to cut the baby from Jamela's womb. News of the horrific crime spread like wildfire, becoming a sensational headline across major newspapers. A pregnant mother brutally murdered in an act of unimaginable cruelty. That very night, Tiffany was arrested. But instead of showing fear or remorse, she remained eerily calm, as if what had just happened was nothing out of the ordinary. In the interrogation room, Tiffany began revealing chilling details of her crime. She calmly recounted, "On the morning of September 16, 2006, Jamela had visited Tiffany's mother's house in Belleville to hang out. A heated argument broke out between them. In a fit of rage, Tiffany attacked Jamela, knocking her unconscious. Then, Tiffany bound Jamela's hands and feet with duct tape, preventing her from escaping. In a moment of sheer panic, Jamela regained consciousness and struggled desperately to break free. But Tiffany had already lost all sense of humanity. She covered Jamela's mouth with duct tape, silencing her cries for help, and dragged her into the bathroom. There, she cut the baby out of Jamela's womb, a scene too horrifying to imagine. Jamela was still alive, writhing in agony, but powerless to change her fate. Minutes later, she grew weaker and weaker until she took her last breath. A lifelong friendship had just ended in the most brutal way possible. Immediately after committing the crime, Tiffany tried to cover her tracks. She wrapped Jamela's body in a shower curtain, then dragged it to a nearby overgrown field. But the most terrifying part, This wasn't an impulsive act. It was premeditated. A week before the murder, Tiffany had secretly bought the necessary tools, a homemade birthing kit, including scissors, rubbing alcohol, latex gloves, and a syringe. This proved that Tiffany had planned the crime long before carrying it out. This was not a heat-of-the-moment killing. It was a cold-blooded execution. Even more disturbing, for months leading up to the crime, Tiffany had pretended to be pregnant, fabricating an entire story to lure her Navy boyfriend KH back home. She sewed maternity clothes, stuffed her belly to make it appear larger, and even bought baby supplies, diapers and bottles, to convince everyone she was expecting. When news of Jamella's murder and Tiffany's arrest broke, both families were thrown into a state of utter shock and disbelief. No one could comprehend how this horrifying chain of events unfolded. How could someone be this cruel? But the nightmare was far from over. As police dug deeper into the case, they uncovered an even more horrifying truth. Jamella's 3 children were also missing. No one knew where they were. No one had seen them since the day their mother disappeared. A new wave of terror spread through the community. Were they still alive? Or had Tiffany already taken their lives too? On September 22, 2006, police expanded their investigation. They searched Jamella's apartment, hoping to find clues about the missing children. Officers gathered photos of the children and shared them with the media, hoping someone would recognize them and help bring them home safely. During the investigation, Evan Collins, Jamella's partner, became a key person of interest. The police needed him to provide more details about Jamella's children and their last known whereabouts. As investigators pieced together the timeline, they confirmed that Tiffany's daughter was safe, but Jamella's 3 children were still missing. According to Evan Collins, the last time he saw the children was on September 18, just 3 days prior. That night, Tiffany came to pick up the children, claiming that Jamella had asked her to babysit. Since the 2 women were best friends, Evan saw no reason to doubt her. The children couldn't have just disappeared without a trace. Police tightened the investigation, shifting their full attention onto Tiffany. Meanwhile, Tiffany remained in custody. Under the relentless pressure of police interrogations, she finally confessed to where the children were. Tiffany's admission led police back to Jamella's apartment the next morning. None of the officers could have imagined what they were about to witness. The moment they entered, a putrid stench filled the air, hitting them like a punch to the gut. Every officer held their breath in horror. They froze in place. Something was terribly wrong. And then, the gruesome truth finally revealed itself. In the cramped apartment, the naked bodies of Jamella's 3 children were found in the most unimaginable places. 2 of them were stuffed into the washing machine. The 3rd child lay motionless inside the dryer. Their small bodies had severely decomposed after days trapped in the sealed space, unnoticed by the outside world. The sight left the entire investigation team speechless. A young officer, unable to bear the horror, ran outside and vomited. The most chilling fact? Police had actually walked past this very apartment just 1 day earlier, unaware that the 3 children's bodies were still inside. When questioned about her motives, Tiffany calmly admitted to everything, but never gave a reason for killing the 3 innocent children. To understand what really happened, we need to go back to September 18, 2006, just 3 days before the funeral, right after Tiffany had already murdered Jamella and her unborn baby. That day, Tiffany continued executing her twisted plan. She lied to Evan Collins, heartlessly claiming that Jamella had asked her to take the children out for the day and borrow her car. When she brought the children back to the apartment, Tiffany acted as if nothing was wrong. She looked at them and said, "It's bath time." But instead of laughter and splashing water, the bathroom, where Tiffany had murdered Jamella, became the setting for an even more horrific crime. One by one, Tiffany drowned Jamella's 3 children in the bathtub. Demon, 7 years old, Evan, 2 years old, Janella, 1 year old, none of them stood a chance. Some reports indicate that Tiffany drugged the children with cough syrup before killing them, possibly to make them drowsy and unable to resist. After murdering all 3 children, Tiffany calmly dragged their bodies out and disposed of them, just as we've seen in the previous segment. After committing the horrific crimes, Tiffany simply walked away, continuing her life as if nothing had happened. This inhuman act not only ended the lives of 3 innocent children, but also wiped out Jamela's entire family within a single week. By this point, Tiffany had confessed to everything. She murdered her best friend, stole her unborn baby, and mercilessly killed her 3 children. Yet, Tiffany never provided any explanation as to why she had targeted the children. On September 29, 2006, the funeral of Jamela Tunstall and her 3 children took place, leaving the community in tears. More than 700 people attended to say their final goodbyes. Within just 3 days, over $30,000 was raised to help cover the funeral expenses. But while the community mourned, the legal battle surrounding Tiffany Hall grew increasingly complex. Initially, Tiffany was only charged with the murders of Jamela and her unborn child. However, as the investigation progressed, she was officially charged with the murders of the 3 children as well. At first, Tiffany pleaded not guilty, which led to a series of psychiatric evaluations before her trial. She was initially assigned a public defender, but when the state declared its intent to pursue the death penalty, a more experienced attorney was appointed to defend her. James Gray, Tiffany's lawyer, revealed that while she was deemed mentally competent to stand trial, she suffered from severe psychological issues, with an IQ of just 70, borderline intellectual disability. What made this case even more controversial was the fact that Tiffany herself was a mother. At the time of the crimes, her 2 daughters were only 5 and 8 years old. Finally, on June 10, 2008, the trial concluded with a life sentence without parole for Tiffany Hall. The verdict reflected the unforgivable cruelty of her crimes, murdering 5 innocent lives, including Jamela and her 3 children. But even after the sentence was handed down, painful questions remained unanswered. What could drive a mother to commit such monstrous acts? In September 2008, Tiffany attempted to withdraw her guilty plea, claiming that her lawyer had failed to represent her properly. However, the court rejected her request. In 2012, she filed another appeal, requesting a new attorney, but once again, her request was denied. Tiffany refused to give up. She insisted that her lawyers had failed to thoroughly investigate her mental health condition at the time of her guilty plea. According to legal records, James Gray had not even received Tiffany's psychiatric evaluation report until 2 days after she had already pleaded guilty. This raised serious concerns over whether Tiffany had fully understood the nature of her crimes, or if she was merely a victim of untreated psychological disorders. A psychiatric report revealed that Tiffany had a long history of severe mental illnesses, including psychotic disorders, PTSD, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, severe depression, and mild intellectual disability. These diagnoses sparked public debate. How should the legal system handle criminals suffering from severe mental illness? In response, the court decided to overturn the denial of post-conviction relief, meaning Tiffany could continue to appeal her case. Over the next few years, her case was repeatedly revised and reviewed, with new attorneys stepping in during 2015 and 2016. Tiffany continued requesting a new attorney, but her requests were rejected. Finally, in 2020, Tiffany won a crucial legal battle that allowed her to file another appeal for post-conviction relief. While her case remains entangled in the appeals process, at the very least, Jamela's family can find some solace in knowing that Tiffany is still behind bars. Currently, Tiffany Hall is serving her sentence at the Logan Correctional Center in Lincoln, Illinois. The case of Tiffany Hall will forever be remembered as one of the most horrifying crimes in history, not only for the monstrous brutality of the killer, but also for the many questions that may never be answered. This video concludes here. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.